To begin, I want to let you know that the Chamber is a nonpartisan civic organization. Our membership is comprised of businesses in Hermann and the surrounding area. While we never endorse any one particular candidate, our goal is to be directly involved in important issues to keep our community strong. My name is Mary Bryson, and I will serve as your moderator, along with Mr. Gary Watts, timekeeper as well as president of the Chamber. We both serve as board members of the Chamber, but please note that Mr. Watts nor myself are residents of the city of Hermann and will not be voting in the upcoming election. We have some housekeeping rules here. The format for the evening: the speaking order of the candidates was drawn at random. The drawing was conducted by Melissa Lensing, our executive director of the Chamber of Commerce. Each candidate was apprised of the rules and the process prior to this evening and reminded during the drawing. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes for opening statements. Following the opening statements, the candidates for each race will be given 2 questions each, beginning with the school board candidates. These questions have been chosen by the Chamber Board, and each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer those questions. Questions will be presented in the same order as used for opening statements. The candidate can relinquish time at any point. The timer will inform the candidates at the 3-minute and 1-minute interval during opening statements and at the 1-minute interval during question and answer. We do have a few rules for our audience. We do ask that you respect the opinions of others and be respectful of our candidates and our audience members. And we do reserve the right to ask anyone behaving inappropriately to leave the auditorium. After each candidate from all the races have completed opening statements, their question and answer, we're going to have some time available for questions from the audience. When we come to that point, we ask that you stand, state your name, and the name of the candidate to whom you're directing the question. There will be 1 question per audience member, and we reserve the right to limit questions per audience member. Candidates for the 2 openings on the school board are incumbents Dot Schoening and Tim Schulte, and challenger Deborah Weingarth. Alderperson for Ward 1, Susan Langer, who is running unopposed, is not participating tonight. Ward 2 candidates are Geers and Clayton Newell, and the mayoral candidates are incumbent Bruce Cox and the challenger Robert Sitton. Now we will begin with opening statements from the school board candidates, and Ms. Weingarth, Deborah Weingarth, was chosen first.
I don't know, was it fixed? Welcome, and thank you so much for the Chamber for having this forum for us to speak with you. My name is Deborah Weingarth, and I am running for the school board. I have 3 words first to start with, and that is perception, proper, and potential. And so I'll be reiterating that as I speak with you. I first walked into the administrative office and was totally greeted with warmth. I can't tell you how wonderful Karen Morton is that person that I had a first connection with, I suppose. And then I was very welcomed when I met with Dr. Newell, and soon was told of his love of numbers, and I thought, thank goodness in this economic times is that ever a needed skill. And then I was attending 3 different board meetings, and during those board meetings met lots of different administrators, students even, which was delightful to see. And in all, I felt very warm and welcomed by everyone. Perception matters. The lens that we use as we take in and gain knowledge is the worldview we will develop. And with that being said, I had heightened awareness as I became a graduate student again, pursuing my doctorate, my PhD in curriculum and instruction while teaching undergrad candidates for the University of Missouri at Mizzou, and saw the impact of worldview on trying to prepare these candidates. And that being said, just as a little object lesson, since I spent a lot of years in elementary, I brought these 2, and I know you can't see what they are. This is Zulu peppers, and this is loose leaf blend lettuce. But on the back of these packets, when we get them, they give us planting instructions. They're very general, But in essence, we mostly need to be aware of how much water, how much sunlight, how much soil is the foundation we need to build in order to raise these. And that sounds so simple. And then when I start really trying to put that, along with my husband and my grandson who are with us this evening, into a garden, it becomes a little more of a task because you have a lot of decisions to make. They have unique needs. Our students have unique needs. They have special gifts and talents. And it can be very, very daunting to meet all of those needs. But their best potential, just like if it's the proper soil, the proper sun, and the proper water, is the job of those who are entrusted to teach and reach all learners. And the school board is an important part of that teaching and reaching all learners by supporting those entrusted. From facilities to our superintendent and everyone in between. It can be a daunting task, but it's an important task. And so I would like to quickly end my time, because I know time is important, just saying I hope I am a worthy candidate of a school board position. I also brought, because I am a teacher and I love the skill of teaching things like comparing and contrasting, and we know how important that is, a paper of what I had written up to submit to the paper, and they do a lovely job, but there are different nuances. So if you would like to see my paper, I'd be happy to hand one out to you at the end. And thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you. You're a very good audience, and good job, Colin.
Mr. Schulte? Yeah.
I'm not as good a speaker as she is, but ladies and gentlemen, Chamber of Commerce, thank you for inviting me to this open forum. My name is Tim Schulte, and I'm running for my second term for the Gasconade County R1 School Board. I currently live in Hermann, Missouri with my wife, Michelle, and my two daughters. My daughters attend Hermann High School. Paige is currently a sophomore, and Sydney is a freshman. Serving on the school board the past 3 years have been extremely challenging. The pandemic has been a major challenge that I feel with the board, with the faculty and staff, have done a terrific job. I feel that the Hermann students will have a tremendous advantage moving forward versus the kids who are not able to stay in school. In these trying economic times, it is imperative that the district remains fiscally responsible to the district's taxpayer. As our enrollment declines, it is crucial that we spend our money wisely. Coming from the business world, I feel that my past experiences will be beneficial to the district. The school district has something for every student. I have seen firsthand how our staff and students make this possible. Our FFA program is always near the top at state and national conventions. Our speech and drama departments are fantastic with great productions. Our band and our choir not only get exemplary ratings, but win contests regularly. Our FCCLA, FBLA, Scholar Bowl, Honor Society, Student Council, just to name a few, are successful in all their endeavors. All of our athletic teams are constantly competing for conference, district, sectional, and state championships. It gives me great pride as a former Bearcat alumni that our kids excel in all extracurricular activities. In closing, our staff and faculty have done a good job keeping our curriculum up to date with the Department of Secondary and Elementary Education standards. We need to prepare our students for the future, and I ask your vote for in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Again, I would like to thank the Chamber along with Muriel and Gary for their role I am Dorothy Shannon. If you knew me before my junior year in high school, you probably know me as Dorothy. If you knew me after my junior year, most people know me as Dot. My junior year, we had a physical education teacher that said, "You're not a Dorothy, you're a Dot." And since I thought she walked on water, Dot stuck. So, my wife and I live in the Swiss area on my family farm. Between the two of us, we have 4 children and 5 grandchildren. Our grandchildren are from the ages of 9 months to 9 years old. Our oldest grandson is in Hermann Elementary School. I have spent 5 decades plus either as a student, a parent of a student, or grandparent of a student, teacher, counselor, administrator, coach, sports official, and for the past 2 terms, board member. In those 6 years that I've served on the school board here at Gasconade County R1, I have been secretary for 2 years and vice president for, I think, the last 3 years. Also had the opportunity while on the board to attend numerous Missouri School Board Association conferences, as well as legislative days up in Jeff City, where we sit down and have a chance one-on-one to talk to our state legislatures about things that are happening at the state level that will affect local schools. And that's a very valuable time for us to advocate for our public education students. I've also attended our government day here that we host for our local elected officials and state and federal elected officials, where we get to showcase what we do here at Gasconade County, and our students and staff do amazing things. In addition to serving on the school board, I've served on the Gasconade County Extension Board for 8 years, president the last 2 years and vice president now. I am the secretary on the Drake Cemetery board, and I've also been served on the Gasconade County Mental Health Board. Outside of education, Lisa and I have a small family farm operation. I also drive a couple days a week for FedEx, so I get to know all the county roads around. And you will, most weekends from now to November, I'll either be at one of my grandkids' ball games, or I'll be on the softball field pretending to be an umpire. In addition to Lisa and I being in education our whole lives, I have a daughter who is currently the 3rd grade teacher at Gerald Elementary School, and a daughter-in-law who is the counselor at Franklin County R2. So advocating for kids in public education has been something that has been near and dear to my heart my whole life. And I can't imagine that it's not going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life. So I have loved the opportunity to serve on the board with a great administration and staff and fellow school board members, and I would be honored to serve for another 3 years. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do one question at a time. Yeah, do the questions first, thanks. And then we'll do it in the same order, and then we'll go through the second question. Okay, the first question from Deborah. How do you feel the current level of funding? Yes. How do you feel the current level of funding received is sufficient? Or do you feel that the current level of funding received is sufficient? And if not, how should it be changed?
Well, that's a loaded question. Since I just had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about that, it seems to me as though I've never heard at any board meeting, and I have to confess, when I went to board meetings as a teacher, I thought they were a little boring. But ours, I didn't find that way. But when they would talk about the funding and those things, they would just spell out, here's what we have, and here's how we then have to use this money. We have to work within our budget. The way that we do it between government entities supplying it and the citizenry supplying it, I think we need to be very good stewards, because I know that we have a property in Swiss and now a home in property taxes, which do go to the Hermann School District, are rather significant part of our bill. So how do we get, I think, Don, I read you say bang for our buck, and I think that that was true. How do we get that as citizens? I don't have all the answers, but I am very willing as a researcher to help and dig and delve into all of those things. So thank you. I don't know as if that supplies much information about my fiscal responsibility, but I know that I'm married to a German.
Same question?
Same question.
I would say right now, the school district is in pretty good shape between Scott Smith, our former superintendent, and Jeff Neal, our current superintendent. I think fiscally we're in pretty good shape right now, especially with the COVID ESSER money we got. With that being said, we got state-of-the-art facilities. It's important that we maintain them and pay our teachers a good wage. And I would say by, I don't know, 2 or 3 years that we probably should be going back to the taxpayers for a no-cost, a no-tax increase to maintain this great school district. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, going last, I could just say I agree with everything they said. And I do agree with everything they've said, but the funding issue is a huge issue. And in the past, we had probably about 60% of our local money came from state funds, but because of our declining enrollment, that number has dropped down to about 40 to 45% of our total funds come from the state, and 55 to 60% of our funds come from local taxpayers. So making sure that we make good decisions affect all of those people all of us people who are paying local taxes. So I think it's very important that we, as board members, not only make sure that we're getting the bang for our buck to locally teach our students, but we also need to make sure that we're talking to our elected officials who affect how much money that we get from the state. And so spending time with our state legislatures and talking to them about bills that are coming up that do affect how much money that we get from the state. There's only so big a piece of the pie that all of the money needs to be divvied out to. And if they're making decisions that are sending money to charter schools and other things like that that really have no accountability or oversight for taxpayer money, that's a problem. And we need to make sure that we're advocating for our local public education students by talking to them so they understand the impact of the bills that they're passing. Because sometimes things look really good on paper, but they don't know how it's going to impact the local school districts unless we talk to them about that. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Let's start. This one has been addressed in many ways within the community, but what we like to know is what can the district do to attract more families with our declining enrollment?
What can we do to attract, or the declining enrollment is to show the district the shining example I believe that I have seen in everything that I have ever heard from other people that have had children here. I have not heard too much that was negative. I know personally that there are students that are in a county next to us who have to make a choice of which high school they are going to, and they're very much excited about coming to Hermann High School. That's one that it certainly is telling that. So when we offer for our students that we do what we can possibly do with our entrusted resources to get the needs of children met, because we have many special needs that are out there, then we will make a difference, and I think you will get a reputation. If you go to any St. Louis region and you see where people want to attend school, It's generally because they are offering students a very rich environment to gain an education that they can use all through their life and make decisions with. So in essence, just not only keep what we're doing, but then keep looking a way to reach and teach all students.
Housing, housing, and housing. I think the infrastructure's here. I don't know about the industrial park, if that's really gonna do it, but I see people wanting to get the heck out of St. Louis. So as they come here, the younger couples especially, jump on the website. We've got a fantastic website, but I think it starts with affordable housing. Well, not necessarily affordable housing, but housing in general. I look today, I think I see one, maybe two real estate signs up. So I know the city fathers are trying to get us on board, and that's it in a nutshell. We got to have more housing, plain and simple. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with what they say. You know, obviously, we can't increase our student enrollment if we don't have places for people to live. So getting places for people to live, but we also need to continue, I think we do a good job, but we need to continue to sell our community and sell our school district. There are so many great things that go on here, and Tim listed several of those in his opening statement, but our kids are great kids. They perform well in the classroom, they perform well when they graduate from here, and they compete so well locally and regionally in the state and in national events that they go to. So we need to make sure that we continue to sell that to anybody who is looking for a place to come to. And again, we need to work with our local officials and see if there's anything we can do to promote more development of housing, and also if there's anything we can do to help with internet services once you get out in the rural areas, because I live between Swiss and Bay, and sometimes it feels like a gerbil is, you know, grinding to get internet service. So, I think we need to work with any local people or people at the state level to try to accomplish those things. But yes, declining enrollment is an issue, and that affects our funding and affects a lot of things. But we do a lot of great things here, and we just need to make sure that we do a good job of selling and showcasing that to anybody who's looking for a place to live.
Thank you. We're now going to have our opening statements from our aldermen and mayoral candidates. We're going to start with the mayor, the incumbent, Bruce Cox.
I want to thank the Chamber for letting us do this affair, and also the school for letting me use your facility. Good evening, my name's Bruce Cox. I'm running for re-election as your mayor for the city of Hermann. I'm running on the same platform I did before: honesty, common sense, unity, and service. I'm married to Roberta, most people know her as Bobby, with our 50th wedding anniversary coming up June 9th. I have 4 children: Bridget, Bradley, Brian, and Brent, 3 of them which are U.S. Marine veterans. I'm also a grandparent with 13 grandkids. I know how important family is, and I want to keep Hermann a great place for families and a great place to raise children. I've been a resident of Hermann since 1982. I'm a retired firefighter with 45 years of service. My last 35 years on the job as a captain, so I know how to handle situations and to be a leader. I'm a business owner here in Hermann, opening my first store in September 1981 and have expanded to 3 locations. So I understand the challenges of business. I've been an alderman since 2013, your mayor for the last 22 months, and I am proud to serve the city of Hermann. I am also proud to be a U.S. Navy veteran. I'm not someone that will make promises or do favors. I am proud of my first term as mayor. The pandemic presented issues, but I believe the right decisions were made, and Hermann economy shows it. Hermann flourished when many other communities did not. The polar vortex was a challenge, and thankfully we had the reserves so we did not have to pass that large bill to our citizens at one time. Which brings me to the utilities. The city of Hermann is a business, and we can only spend what we take in. People have a hard time understanding the utility bills. We are not for profit, but try to provide the services at a reasonable rate as possible. People complain about your utility bills in Hermann, but Hermann is way better off than many communities, and we are lower on our rates than a lot of communities. Most people look at that bottom line and they panic. When Mayor Kerber was in office, the city hired BAI to do a cash reserve study on our utilities. It showed that our reserve funds for the emergencies are way too low, and 2 years later, they're still way below what they recommend us to have. And thankful we had those reserves when we had the crisis with the polar vortex. So don't be fooled by the promise of lowering your utility bills and getting rid of the meter fees. Because if one of them fees goes away, the other one will have to be raised to offset that loss. And with inflation the way it is, we will probably be paying more down the road anyway. A good example is we just found out today that the tubing that the electric company uses was 91 cents a foot. Now it's $5.71 a foot. I was just informed of that today. One thing that I am proud of being mayor is the morale of our dedicated employees since I've been mayor. Our city employees do an amazing job, and I have appreciated working with them. I believe the city of Hermann can overcome many problems that arise with the right leadership, and I will provide that leadership. There are many positive and good things that are going to happen here in Hermann in the next couple of years, and I really want to be a part of that. As I have said before, if you live in Hermann, you are blessed. And I know this for a fact with my near-death experience with COVID. And the community support of Hermann was shared with me and meant so much. I'm asking for your vote for mayor. Thank you.
I entered this race for mayor for a reason. 2 years ago, I went to Bruce and I said I was going to run. He came out and said he was running. We reached an agreement. I said, here's what I would like to see pushed. I want to see growth, I want to see industry, and I want to see housing. 2 years later, our population is continuing to drop. I see no growth in housing. I see no industry coming in. So, I'm a man of my word. That's why I'm here tonight. But before I get to that, I want to clear an issue up that came to me a couple hours ago. And I want it to be known, there is no presently elected official, farmer elected official, that has any control over me now or ever will. I will make the decision that is best for the community. Whoever put it out, and I know who two of you are because you're here tonight, we will meet. Let's clear that up. As a city, our obligation is to the community. The board works for you. I can't give this person something, I can't give this one. In the past, we've been known to give this one something, this group something, but these over here get nothing. This is wrong. We have to treat people the same, regardless. We cannot have city officials going out here and saying, well, disregard that ordinance. This has happened continually. It goes on yet today. I am running for this position to work for you. I will benefit nothing from you. I expect nothing. I will give you 100% if you'll give me 50%.
You need to realize the city council is elected to the position to represent all of you, and if you have personal issues, you need to resolve them, not take them to the board. The board's not there to pass ordinance for you, to make it effective for you. That is not the problem for the board. The utility thing, I do think it needs to be readjusted, and I do think it can be readjusted. I'm going to challenge the fact that we are not higher or lower than anyone else. I done a survey on it also, but I didn't use somebody else's figures. I went to the communities and got something a lot different. We need to have it looked at, and regardless of what it is, we need to cut it. I know where the difference is, but we need to open our minds and give back to the community, not continually tax the people or take their money. The big thing that really bothers me is housing. Why don't we have more housing? Has anybody with the city gone out and talked to any developers that come in here? I have sat back there for several years and listened to aldermen and mayors say, hey, we need economic development, we need housing, we need industry. Has any of them gone out and actively recruited somebody? I'll give you that answer. It's no. I've talked to 7 contractors this past year. I got 3 of them that will come in here in the next year or 2 to develop apartments. I've also contacted 2 industries to come in here. The problem with industry is, you just shut me off. We have to have property. We have to have a place to go, and we have to welcome them. They were told there's no place here for them, and they didn't want their business. That's wrong. We need to have that. Tourism is great. It's the greatest thing we got, and we need to build on it. We need to do more of it, not less. The last comment I'll make, if Gary will let me, is economic development. I would like to see us going, instead of an economic development for the city, let's develop a community development plan around us and get rid of this imaginary wall that's here. We need to grow. If Rhineland puts in an apartment complex, it's going to benefit this town. If Berger puts in an industry, it's going to benefit this town. These are things we need to look at, and we need to look at them close. For some reason, there's an imaginary boundary that we can't go outside of. We cannot afford to hire an economic development by ourselves. Thank you.
Now I'll start with the alderpersons, and I'm going to start with Clayton Newell.
Thank you, and thank you, Chamber, for putting on this event, as everyone said. So, a lot of familiar faces out here tonight, but I'm Clayton Newell. My wife and I, Marie, moved here a couple of years ago to Hermann, so I haven't been here my whole life, but one thing I have done, I'll give you a short synapse of myself, is I grew up on a ranch right outside a rural community, much like this in size here in Missouri. Loved the community. We're agriculture as it gets. We had a day we drove our tractors to school. It's pretty agriculture. But have a love for small town Missouri. But went to the University of Central Missouri. Met my wife freshman year. We've been married going on 13 years. We've got 2 beautiful girls. One is getting ready to turn 9. She goes to 3rd grade here in Hermann Elementary, and we've got a 2-year-old. So we met, and we after college we ended up moving to Columbia. I actually started my first business whenever I was a teenager. It was relatively successful. It paid for everything we needed for the first several years of our relationship, and the ability to move. I was blessed to make it through business in Columbia. I've helped a lot of different businesses. Kind of a weird deal as more of a contract, come in for a couple of years, help them develop strategies, help the businesses grow, help them relate to their customers, whatever the issue was. I've had the blessings of working with people in business standpoints, all the way from individuals in housing, all the way up to large government entities like the National Guard, NASCAR, people like that. So some large board meetings, and I've talked to a lot of people in the front yard, and I'm comfortable with either one. How's that extrapolate and help Hermann? Well, as a few people have said, Hermann is a business. The city is a business in that we own our own utilities. Hermann is great in that it strives and owns a lot of that stuff. Instead of putting it out to co-ops and things of that nature. Where the business side falls in is you need somebody that has a management background, that can manage large projects, whenever. I think everyone's doing a great job and really trying, but whenever you sit there and you get updates from different departments or what have you, you need somebody who's managed projects of that scale, and I have, to fix an infrastructure problem or something like that. One thing too, my wife and I, we had been here several times visiting. Her family's not far from here. We decided to move our family here. That was a huge decision, right? So being in our 30s, we decided to take our kids out of school, to move them an hour away. We know what people like that are looking for. What people like us are looking for whenever we come into a town. Like somebody said, getting on the website and looking at the things, seeing the how up to date things are, as far as community involvement, as far as the calendar, as far as what can we do whenever we're there. We need to continue. Hermann does an amazing job, but we need to continue to work on that and the overall view of whenever you drive into town. Somebody talked about perception. Whenever you drive into town, there's a lot of things that do need fixed. Roads, there's power lines everywhere. It's a spider web over the main drag as you come in. Like there's some things that can be beautified on this already beautiful town, and really highlight the things that we're working on. So my wife and I moved here. We've got our hands full. We've got kids. We're building she's got a business. I'm restoring a building downtown, building a business, and I'm personally working to bring other things into this town. I don't know if I want to plug myself here, but bringing in a concert series free to the community. That's something that I'm working to do. I've got my first one in August. I got another one in September that I've already booked, and that's through my business, and that's just an outreach thing. It's nothing to do with this, but I'm going to continue, regardless of the outcome of this election, to give to this community, and I hope you guys give a little bit to me so I can help you more. Thanks.
Well, I have to say this is probably the most nerve-wracking interview I've ever had. Hi everyone. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for organizing this event and the Gasconade R1 School District for hosting. I'd also like to thank all of you all for coming. My name is Geers. I'm running for Ward 2 Alderman. I own the Downtown Deli and Custard Shop with my wife Alicia Geers. We've owned the deli for 10 years now. Before that, I was a manager for First Watch Restaurants in St. Louis for nearly 8 years. I have a bachelor degree in hospitality and restaurant administration, and I'm 6 hours shy of having my master's degree in business. I've been serving on the Tourism Commission for nearly 2 years now. First off, I'd like to talk about money. I'm a financially conservative person. I want our tax revenue to work hard, just as hard for us as we had to work to put that tax revenue in the first place. I hate throwing money at a problem. I'm a very methodical person. I don't do anything without making a list and having a plan. Something my wife and business partner can attest to. Hermann's tax base has been on the incline. That's great, But we need government officials who realize that a lot of hardworking entrepreneurs and business people here in town made that happen. That's something that's not lost on me. According to Bloomberg, the federal government has pumped over $9 trillion with a T into the economy since 2022. Regardless of your opinion on national politics, there's a huge cloud of grant money floating over our heads. We need elected officials to put in the legwork to secure some of that money for us. Second, and probably most important, is housing. We currently have a massive shortage of affordable rental properties. 10 years ago, when my family and I moved to Hermann, if the apartment above the deli where we lived for 4 years wasn't available, I don't think my family could have made that transition to Hermann. Of course, the city is not in the real estate development business, but we need elected officials to work hand in hand with local organizations to help attract those developers to set up shop here in Hermann. One of the major issues our local school district, which we heard about, is facing is declining student enrollment. Until affordable houses or rental units are made available, it will continue to be a problem. There is good news heading down the grapevine of new developments, and I applaud the local people and organizations that made this happen. But we have to keep pushing this agenda and blowing that horn. Third, I want a city government that puts the common interests of its residents first and foremost, followed very closely by doing what is best for the common interests of all of Hermann's businesses. Fourth, I want a city government with the same passion for list making and planning as I have. Our elected officials should be looking out 5, 10, 15 years, seeing our potential threats, whether they be infrastructure, budgetary concerns, utility rates, labor force, housing for our residents. Finally, I support tourism. May not be a favorable stance to some, but Hermann isn't Hermann without tourism dollars. Yes, I know tourism can have its ugly side. I lived above the deli for 4 years, and we were greeted every weekend with woo at various times of the day right outside my window. Some studies show that every tourist dollar is spent 6 times before it leaves town. That money benefits everyone. It benefits local mom and pop stores. It benefits local tradespeople who keep the heat and AC running. It benefits the local restaurants. It benefits the lumberyard because those mom and pop businesses can afford to do that remodel. So on and so on. So there you have it, my proposal and vision for a prosperous Hermann. I want to help set up Hermann for continued success. It will take more than myself or anyone on the stage to accomplish it. It will take a whole community. I ask for your support to help me become the next Alderman of Hermann.
Okay, these questions that we have are for we'll start with the mayor. What do you feel the future of live music and the open container ordinance is for our city? What do you feel the future of live music and the open container ordinance is for our city?
Well, as it stands, it's the future. The open container ordinance, I think, is a very good thing. I think our police department enforces it the proper way. I don't believe that you need to come down on everybody that's just walking around, a couple that comes here for their anniversary and has an open bottle of wine, and they're not bothering anybody. We are inviting people to come to Hermann to drink. I mean, wineries, distilleries. But we need the ordinance to be in place for those individuals or couples that don't behave. And so I commend our police department for the job that they do. Can they do better? Maybe, but I pat them on the back. As far as music, I think with the venues that we have right now, every once in a while there's a little bit of a conflict of too much noise, but I think we're getting a handle on that. We had the public meeting where all the businesses that had outdoor music came together, and they are working amongst themselves. And hopefully that will solve that problem where the city doesn't have to come down with a stringent ordinance to ban it or control it. Thank you.
That's a loaded question, Mariel, since you know where I come from. Open container. It was instituted under my administration when I was chief here for a simple reason. The drunks got out of control. We tried warning them, it did no good. I'm going to give my opinion of what I've seen this past year and 2 years before. We need to start enforcing it again before it gets out of control. That's what stopped our festivals before, was not enforcing it. And in order to get it under control, we had to do that. And yes, I arrested 470 people one weekend of a My Fest. And that's what brought this thing down. And it's going to happen again if we don't stay on top of it. It's not put out here like we used to post it everywhere we had an open container. I found 5 postings throughout the town this past year. Don't do that. Noise ordinance. I'm opposed to another ordinance, especially on this level, for the simple fact it's too arbitrary. What you consider noise and what I consider noise is different. If you know me, you know I wear hearing aids. I have very sensitive hearing. And what disturbs me may not disturb you. The other thing is, you call in a complaint on it, how do we go to work and regulate this thing? No two people can operate the same way. I would hope that what's in place is going to work where they're going to police themselves. I don't know the footage you're going to have to come up with. You're going to have to give a lot of thought to it before you can sell me on an ordinance. I'm sorry. Did I make it clear?
You did. 2 seconds.
Same question, Clayton.
Well, I think most of you guys know where I stand on music. I really love live music. Trying to bring more of it to town. My wife and I have done quite a bit of traveling around the United States to a lot of tourist communities. One of the most charming things about walking around and enjoying yourself is hearing music, sitting down in the patio, listening to something. I think, you know, we're all mature adults most of the time, and we can discuss with our neighbors and you know, work out solutions if we're bothering one another in the commercial district. You know, I have a business opening very, very soon in the commercial district that you know, someday we might want music outside the back patio or something. That's, you know, it's part of the ambiance of the town. I would like to see more the ability to maybe, you know, not amplified, but maybe play some acoustic music on the sidewalks, things like that whenever you walk around. That'd be nice to see. It definitely adds to the feel of the community from a tourist standpoint. So then the open container. I agree with Mayor Cox on that. You know, it's going to have to come down to whether or not it's enforced, you know, on a case-by-case basis. If somebody's being unruly, I often sit on a porch overlooking Schiller Street and watch people walk around late at night in the evenings while I'm having a cocktail. And you know, I see a lot of people that have had a good time and maybe should have went to bed a little while ago, but I don't see anybody out causing any damage or breaking anything or doing anything extremely unruly. They're having a good time and they're doing it in a safe environment. So, you know, if you've got people that want to do that, then I'd say let them. So, thanks.
When it comes to the open container ordinance, it needs to be enforced across the board. I don't want to sound like the fun police, but we have a growing diverse crowd that is being coming to Hermann for tourism. We have families. This is not Soulard at Mardi Gras, 20-year-old beer bash. We do need to have ordinances in place, and they need to be enforced. When it comes to music, music is art. Is someone's definition of that's too loud might be another person's definition of, hey, I'm just having a good time. Curfews absolutely need to be enforced, but as far as amplification, I think the business owners, and we need to have discussions with people who hold live music, that they need to be held accountable and be part of the community and be respectful of their neighbors. If that doesn't happen, then maybe we have to get the police involved. We don't need to have an ordinance on the books necessarily, but we do need to have a clear-cut definition of when it stops and are you disturbing your neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, our second and last question. Do you feel the utility rates for businesses and residents are fair? If not, what solution would you offer?
Well, utility rates. We talk about it a lot. As I said earlier, Hermann's utility rates, most people when they get their bill, they look at that bottom number and they panic. Oh my gosh, my bill's $584 or whatever it may be. They don't realize that each line is part of the bill, and the utility as far as electric and gas are individual. I was talking to our public works director today, and we are lower on gas and electric than many communities. Again, we are lower, but as far as I'm concerned, right now the rate, I know we've added this 11% for the polar vortex, so that's added. That will go away, but it's going to take several years. But I will warn you that, you know, with inflation, the cost of the natural gas is going to go through the roof, and that's going to affect all of us. And like I said earlier, we're not in this to make a profit. We try and pass on the cost of what we have to pay and to pay our bills. So I think our rates are as fair as they can be. I wish they were lower, but that's out of my control. Thank you.
I still stand, we can address them and adjust them down. What I would like to see is a utility board to sit down and take this thing apart and see if there's somewhere we can cut. I don't care if it's a mill or it's a penny off of your utilities. It can be done if you put a pencil to it. Do we need a 4% increase over what our cost is? That's where the problem lies at. The city needs to tighten their budget and work with everybody. That 4% kind of bothers me when I calculated it out, and it is on your bill if you want to look at it. That's 4% of every kilowatt hour you run, every piece of our gallon of water, or unit of water, however it's measured, is there. The other thing that bothers me is that $30 a month fee, because you're constantly paying sales tax on it. How many times do you have to pay sales tax on something? If you figure it through, you're constantly paying sales tax on that $30. Can we adjust this out? Can it be done over the next 3 years? I'm not saying you can go to work and just stop it. I think you have to go to work and work with the people and see if we can wash it out. Otherwise, I don't ever see it going away. We should have a little over $3 million in that reserve fund. Do we have it? I don't know. because it calculates out $36,000 a month, that's $432. $432,000 a year, that comes out in the time it's been going to almost $3,240,000. That's what should be in your reserve fund. I question the person who goes to work and says we need this in reserves, because if we have a disaster, the county will help us, the state will kick in, what they can't do, the federal government will do. Thank you.
So as far as the pricing of your utilities, there are quite a few things that fluctuate based on, you know, we're not producing gas here, right? We're buying it. So so to run it, as I would say, to run it as a business, to have the foresight to look out and do forecasting, to talk to your places where you are buying it. If you foresee something coming up, rate increase, you know, something that could potentially, a world event that could potentially, or in the history, has shown to increase it, and a lot of times you have the options to pre-purchase or lock in rates. There's a lot of pride that goes into saying, well, you know, we're going to do it on a bill by bill, but sometimes the right answer is to go in, lock in something, and maybe we have to borrow just a little bit of money in order to make sure that the cost doesn't go up over the course of time. Rates for stuff like that are ridiculously low. You know, there's a lot of options to be open-minded about. Like I said, I know there's a lot of pride factor that we own our own utilities. But if it gets to the point where the utility cost is a major factor, you know, maybe discussing with co-ops or something like that, and having those conversations and writing it out in black and white to see what the difference is, and putting that to the community to see if that's the answer. You know, we can be open-minded. We can look at it from a lot of different angles, and I'm sure there is a way to cut cost. You know, I'm not saying that there's a way to tomorrow make your bill lower, but there's definitely ways with some foresight, as far as whenever we're repairing infrastructure, to replace it with some larger gauge things that may cost us just a little bit more now, but it's going to keep outages from happening and things like that. It's going to be easier to gauge when something would happen if we know that we have infrastructure that we can count on. So that's my take.
I have the benefit of being last to speak, so I have the advantage of soaking up like a sponge everyone's proposals. And I think that might be something that we all need to take into account. No one person up here has the answer to it. We need to listen to other people. I agree with Mr. Cox. The bottom line is a shock. Before we moved to Hermann, where everything was bundled in together, we got separate bills. Some were quarterly, some were monthly, but you didn't really add them all up together to come up with that sum total of all your utilities in 1 month. I agree with Mr. Sitton. There needs to be evaluations. We can't sit on the status quo and say, well, this is what it is, it's pretty good, we're going to stick with that. I agree with Clayton. There are options out there of different ways of structuring and bundling different forms of energy. But like it or not, energy is going up. It's not more than likely going to come down. As cleaner energy standards become more in place, energy is going to become more expensive. We need to look at the future and see what can we do as a community to maybe produce some solar energy. So, you know, I don't want to get environmental, but there are different options out there, not just looking at the stock rates available to us. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. Now we're going to give our audience an opportunity to ask some questions. And once again, if you would stand, state your name, and then the person that you're addressing your question to. Melissa has a mic, and she'll come around and
Hi, my name's Tom Durham. I have a question proposed to both the mayoral candidates. Guys running for mayor. With the new administration coming up, I want to know if they have any plans on implementing new procedures or staffing at City Hall.
Let me understand, you want to know if we're going to have staff meetings?
No, implementing any new procedures or any staffing changes.
I don't know of any new procedures as far as staffing changes. Yes.
That's procedures in general.
Staffing, we're short. We're short 2 police officers, we're short in dispatch, and we are short in the front office. So staffing, yes, we definitely need to improve that, but we're not getting any applications like everybody else in America. So, but as far as procedures, as far as I know, right now things are running pretty smooth. There's always room for improvement. I don't know what those procedure changes would be at this point.
To answer your question, and in very short terms, yes, I think there needs to be some changes made. I'm not saying how at this point. It's not fair to the people involved. But we have to look, that is an outlet we have to look at. Do we need all these people standing up there all the time? I'm not going to tell you what I see every day, and I work out of that office. If I did, you would come unglued. We need to make sure these people are working and working the 8 hours. I'm this way. I grew up, you work for somebody, you're going to draw the pay for 8 hours, you better be working for 8 hours. And not sitting on your phone, reading a book, or lollygagging with somebody else. So yes, there needs to be some procedure changes, and that's where I'm going to stand at right now. And I also think there needs to be a course taught to the girls in the office on guest service. If you worked for me at the casino, I would have fired you. You do not talk down to somebody that comes to that window. And I see this and I hear it all the time from some of them. You have to respect them. I'm sorry.
My name is Mike Angel. Just a question about the next time COVID strikes, and it probably will. Using your foresight, the 4 of you in the back, you've all seen the restrictions and the mandates and such that Hermann had the last time. What are your thoughts for the next time regarding restrictions and mandates and how you would handle them if you were in charge? If they feel like they should answer.
Well, hopefully it never happens again, but if it happens again, of course you got to go by the federal government or the state, what they propose. But I think we did the right thing this last time, and I really believe that, you know, being the mayor, that you, I could not bring myself to say that you had to wear a mask. I think it's everybody's responsibility to take care of themselves, and I think the word got out that we did not have a mask mandate, and it really helped us economically. But in the future, as far as I'm concerned, I would probably handle it the same way at this time. It depends on the circumstances. Everything is different.
I mean, it depends on the type of virus. So, I mean, things could be a lot more serious, or they could not be as serious. But I believe I would do it the same way that I did it in the past.
I endorse Mayor Cobb's 100% on his decision on the mask mandate by not having it. If another one should arise, we need to know what it is. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a healthcare professional. We're gonna have to listen to those people and take their guidance. To get me to put a mask on, you're gonna have to work at it again. And a lot of other people are the same way because of the breathing. The mask you had was useless if you don't know it. If we would have really had what they said we had, it would have done you no good whatsoever with 90% of the mask. A cloth mask is useless. An N95 will help you. The only other thing is a self-contained suit. And I'm not going to wear one of them either. But I do endorse his decision, and I would probably do the same thing if it came up and I was in here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just quickly reiterate that. I think Hermann did a great job. Our industry grew. Everyone else that I know throughout the state and country and business really struggled, if they are even still in business. There's a lot of business owners that are running their own one-person thing that used to have 20 or 30 employees, and who knows what the state that those employees are in at the moment. So I think we did a really good job making sure that people are informed, but you don't need to mandate that anybody does anything. You just need to inform the public. That's the government's, if they have a role in that, is to make sure that you guys are informed and that you have all the information that you need to make a conscious decision for yourself. So, thanks.
I don't know if actually COVID ever went away. I don't know if another type of virus, it will not rear its ugly head. What I do know is that we as a business listen to our local county health department. What they mandated, we abided by. That was our decision. When we had to close the inside of the restaurant, we did it. When we had to do to-go orders only, we did it. We only did what we felt was necessary. We didn't make any of our customers wear anything that they didn't want to. I truly believe that that is a personal decision and a business decision, and if a business wanted to mandate that for its customers or its employees, it has every right to do so. It also has the right to not follow it if it is not mandated by the county health department. Thank you.
I'm Ron Cratley. I am, like Muriel and Gary Watts, I am not a resident of the city of Hermann, but I am a resident of the Hermann community. And we need to think, and I think some of you brought it up tonight, as a community, we need economic development. You guys have brought up some very good points. Housing. Tim, you brought it up. It is very serious. The city of Hermann basically has three economic engines. One is the school, that includes St. George. This is the #1 employer in the city. The second one is a hospital. We need to keep the hospital here. We need to keep it going. We need to keep it healthy. We need to get people here. And then we go to the third one, which is tourism. And tourism has done a great job, no question about it. But the problem is we are a victim of our success in tourism. We've done so well with bringing people in that we've taken the homes that would have been rental properties and for people to live in and work here and live here and have children in schools. We've taken those and turned into guest houses. There's a plus to that too. I meet with other people from around the state on our GROW project, And they have problems. They have houses that are neglected that have to be torn down and the city has to cover that. We don't have that problem. Those houses that would have been torn down.
Ron, what's your question?
Well, I'm getting to it. The question is then, first of all, those houses that would have been torn down have been revitalized and turned into guest houses. The problem is we don't have housing, and what we need is an economic director that is hired by the city of Hermann, that is a full-time position that's dedicated to try and bring businesses, try and bring housing into this community, to make this school survive, to make the hospital survive, and to make St. George School survive. That's my question for any of the people up there, and the school board just as well. And Tim said it very good, housing, housing, housing. So.
Not sure if I understand the question.
I think you need an economic development director for the city of Hermann that's full-time and dedicated to finding funds to make things happen here, to get developers in and get housing built so we can grow the school district, we can grow the hospital and so forth.
Well, I personally do not think we need a full-time economic development. I think it should be a joint thing like it was years ago with HRED, the Chamber, City of Hermann, and now there's this Grow project, and everybody put into it. The city does not have, if you're going to have a good economic development person, you're probably going to be in the $130,000, $150,000 range salary. The city doesn't have that money to do that. So if all these entities would get together and pool their money, maybe we could pull something off like that. At this stage, my personal thought is, in economic development to try and get more industry in here is fighting a losing battle to a certain degree because there is no housing. Where are people going to live that's going to work? With the fuel the way it is, they're not going to drive from St. Louis out to Hermann to work. So number one priority is housing. And I will tell you there's several projects on the books. They ain't going to happen overnight, but within the next couple of years, you're going to see growth in Hermann or the surrounding areas with, I can't say affordable housing, but apartments, townhouses, and so forth. So, in my opinion, that's number one. Let's get some housing, then you can address the expansion. As far as bringing more business into town, downtown is full. There's no empty buildings. There's only, if I'm right, there's only 2 spots out by Dos Primos out there, little office spaces. There's also going to be some development in that coming in the near future as far as more retail. But that's, again, not going to happen overnight. But that would be my solution, because I know the city at this point can't afford to pay that kind of money. Thank you.
Let's clarify your question, Ronnie. Do you want just an economic development director in the city of Hermann? Yes or no? It's a simple question.
Yes. Somebody can act as a focal point that has the public responsibility and is recognized as a political entity, not as the chamber, or not as the HRED. You've got volunteers all over the place that would help those people. You just need to have a common thread that brings them together.
Okay, so all they're going to do is develop the city of Hermann.
The community of Hermann.
That's not what you said. Let's get on the same plane. That's where I want to get. Are we going to get on the same train where I want to see the whole community develop? I don't care if you're 5 miles out or 10 miles out, or if it's just going to be the city. Your comment was the city. Which do you want to do?
I want the city of Hermann to have a vested interest. They have not acted in a responsible way for the last 10 years since HRED started. They fired one economic director they had, and then they made it a part-time job for the tourism director, which never serves the purpose well. And you need somebody dedicated to the position of trying to get things going in Hermann.
I'll buy into that 100%. Because this is what I've been trying to get through, is we need to move forward. We're moving backwards. We've got to start going the other direction. That person can get you grants for your housing development. They can get you grants for industry. How many of you know that every one of you out here was eligible for a grant for your electric service? Had somebody picked it up and researched it? Every citizen was eligible for it. If you owned a residence, you could have gotten reimbursed for it. If you're in industry, you can be reimbursed through a lot of grant programs. I have spent 3 months researching grants when everybody else said there wasn't any out here. And I found out how to go around a lot of them. You can't depend on what Myrma tells you. They're only allowed so much, but you do not have to go through Myrma to get a grant. You can go around them and get a grant from the state. If the state doesn't do it, you can go around them and get one from the federal government if you take the time to do it. Yes, I agree, we do need to buy into this program, and it needs to be a community effort, not a city.
Does anybody else want, okay.
Yeah, just real quick.
As far as an individual community development person, I mean, we'd have to sit down and figure out what that would cost and what that looks like. Developing a committee or something to move us forward in that direction of community development or economic development is a great thing. We definitely need to develop something where we're sitting down and it's a scheduled thing that we're talking about. The only thing that and excuse me if I'm deft on this, but housing is the shiny penny, right? I mean, that's easy to talk about. We all know we need more housing. I don't need a grant to build a house. Does anyone have some land that they would like to sell me? That's a big thing. We can get grants, we can build houses. I need to build some buildings personally, and I can't find anybody to sell me any land. So, this development person that we're going to be hiring, is he door-to-door knocking on Century Farms and things of this nature to try and get some people to let go of this property that's sitting here? What's the plan for that? I think there needs to be if we're going to have a person like that, there needs to be a set forth plan on how that's even going to be possible. If there's, okay, we can get all the houses in the world. I can build 3 or 4 houses, but I don't have any land to put them on. So that's going to be some questions that are going to need to be answered before we put money forth on an individual that's going to be sitting on his hands.
The current person holding the title of Director of Tourism and Economic Development, I have the utmost respect for, and I believe that person should have a staff available to her to help her run the city in that particular aspect. It does need to go through a focal point. As much as I would love to see HRED, Hermann, Chamber of Commerce, all work on behalf of Hermann, there needs to be a bigger piece. So do I believe that new economic development person needs to have a new person? No, I believe that person already exists and they need a staff. Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Thank you, young man back there.
My name is Stacey Lankin. I'm also, like Ron, not a citizen of Hermann. I live right outside Hermann, but I am a commercial property owner here in Hermann. And my question is for Geers. At the City of Hermann Board of Alderman meeting on October 25th, 2021, you stated, "I wouldn't deny the owners of 219 East First Street an income, but this scenario is affecting my income." You then asked the board for a protection in the form of a restrictive ordinance for private property. Can you explain what you meant by that statement? And as an alderman, a potential alderman, how do you believe that that type of government style you requested will promote entrepreneurship and business development in Hermann?
Just waiting for this potential to come up. Am I against free enterprise? Absolutely not. I endorse it. there needs to be regulations in place for food trucks. Every business has them. If a business came into town and set up on private property with no business license, no inspection, not paying any sales tax to Hermann, and this particular company was selling food, and they served up a tainted food and there was a mass E. coli breakout, Hermann is in the media as the epicenter. There's currently no ordinances on the book to prevent this from happening. I support the current draft of the ordinance that the Board of Aldermen is holding. I don't think you could find anyone from either side who doesn't think it is fair and common sense. In October, was I heated? Yes. Was I speaking as a private individual? Yes. Was I speaking as a private business owner? Yes. But when I, if elected, take the role of alderman, I will not use my own personal judgments and viewpoints to the point where I am overruling the common consensus of the town's population. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
One more quick question, and we need to be done for
My name's Brad Lankin, and this is a question for the city, people in the city office. In the early 80s, the city went broke on a poorly negotiated power contract. Who currently negotiates our contracts, and are they professionals at negotiating power contracts? And what could the city do better to negotiate a power contract? And I'm assuming that's the biggest line item in the city's budget yet.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear y'all.
Who is it that negotiates the electrical contracts? And are they professional in your opinion?
Who negotiates the electric contracts?
the electrical contracts, yes.
Who negotiates electrical contracts? Well, we buy our, we are in a co-op, so the co-op, there's not just Hermann, there's a whole lot of cities that are involved with it, and that's where we get our electric from. And I don't know all the details on that, I'll be honest with you, but the cost is passed down, and I don't know how much negotiation there is. I know they have the meetings. I have not been to any of them, but normally our public works director takes care of it. MPUA is the organization, and if there's any negotiation, he would be the one that would do it.
Okay. We want to thank everybody for coming tonight. We especially want to thank those that are willing to serve our school district.